Hi, Tom Klaus here with Tenacious Change and another conversation with a changemaker. My friend and colleague Stan Martin is masterful in community engagement. I met Stan several years ago through a federal project we were working on together. Stan has been facilitating and co-leading with the community CAI Global's Hope Buffalo work for the past several years. It has been my privilege to be a consultant in Buffalo, New York for Stan on that initiative. However, you need to know it was an experience of mutual learning. I've seen Stan in action, and nobody does relationship building and community engagement better. Since cloning isn't really a doable thing yet, the next best thing I could do was interview Stan. In fact, since starting this conversation series, I have always known I wanted to include an interview with him. Actually, you need to get to know Stan and learn about his work with Hope Buffalo. In the description below this video, you'll find links to Hope Buffalo, CAI Global, and a couple of ways to contact Stan. In this conversation, Stan Martin and I talk about what it takes to build relationships, engage the whole community, and create meaningful participation and change toward the goal of creating optimal health and wellness in communities with the greatest needs. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the red subscribe button to receive notices of when I've posted new videos and conversations. Now, settle in and hang out with me and Stan Martin for the next few minutes. Stan Martin, it is so good to see you again, and thank you so much for joining me today. How's it going?
It's going well, my friend. How are you?
You know, I'm okay. I'm doing pretty okay. So now, Stan, I've known you for several years, and we met through a federal teen pregnancy prevention project a few years ago, and I got to know you even better when I was working as a consultant on the Hope Buffalo project in Buffalo, New York. And of course, you've directed that project now for several years. I'd like to really begin our Changemaker conversation today actually with Hope Buffalo and ask you if you wouldn't mind please telling us about that initiative and what's being accomplished by Hope Buffalo today.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. Hope Buffalo stands for Health, Opportunity, Prevention, and Education. And it was actually created, by the community. It's a youth and community-led initiatives that really look or seeks to change the narrative in terms of how we are addressing teen pregnancy here in Buffalo. Traditionally or historically, oftentimes, when we look at this particular work, some of the narrative surrounds teen pregnancy as the root causes of poverty. But one of the things that we looked at in the community after having several conversations and meetings and dialogues, et cetera, the community said, we want to look at poverty as the root causes of teen pregnancy. So it was very important from the community perspectives, from their lens, that we not only look at implementing evidence-based interventions surrounding the subject matter, but also that we address some of the other pillars surrounding livable wage, employment, housing, and addressing the community-built environment, as well. So having said that, we focus on making sure that youth have access to community clinical linkages or our comprehensive referral linkage strategy, which was very important because the youth participated in a assessment of healthcare providers in the community. And what came out of that assessment was that we found that several providers that youth, quite frankly, didn't like or didn't care for, and they didn't find them as youth affirming or youth friendly. So those who, after further conversations and vetting, the youth came up with this wonderful referral linkage guide for teens to utilize in case they needed access to services. in addition to that, one of our other pillars within Hope Buffalo is to really look at creating a branded movement, creating a movement that the youth and the community owns. And we were very successful in doing that with the community. When you look at Hope Buffalo and our logo, all of that is community led and community driven. Sometimes we didn't get it right, but the community, and they were very open and honest to let us know that. So we're very proud that we, after several tries, we finally got it right, and this was something that they could own. And last but not least, I would say that that we're very proud of is that we've been able to reach through Hope Buffalo over 7,000 youth, across 9 zip codes. And one of the things that we've been able to do is to drive teen pregnancy rates down. And when you look at some of the national and local data, it's at some of the lowest rates that it has been in the last 30 years. So we count that, amongst our successes, which we'll probably talk about later on, and also just really building a groundswell of community engagement and community support so that they're leading the charge.
Well, thanks, Stan. That's a really nice overview on Hope Buffalo. And I think it's important for people that may be watching this to have some sense of what Hope Buffalo is all about, because certainly you're doing some really incredible work there. And a lot of that is really around relationship building and community engagement. And so for as long as I have known you, I have really been impressed by the things that you bring to the table for Hope Buffalo. You bring a knowledge of your community. You bring an ability to really establish meaningful relationships with people, and there is an ease that you have in building relationships and engaging the whole of the community. So I also know, though, you might have something that is kind of an interesting challenge on it, and maybe not, and that is that you're a native son of Buffalo. So you've been away for a number of years, and then you come back to help establish Hope Buffalo. And so I'm wondering, what's it like to come back to your hometown to lead a project that depends so much on community engagement? How did being a native son make that easier, or maybe make it more difficult?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, I would like to say it's the community that's leading this work. I'm just along for the ride. They're driving the ship. They're driving the car. And as a native son, of Buffalo, it's very rewarding and gratifying. When I tour, the different neighborhoods or communities that I grew up in, and that at the end of the day, I can see, the fruits of my labor. The fruits of the dreams and aspirations of community residents and of children and of adults and seniors for that matter. And that right there itself is priceless. At the same time, it's very challenging because of the fact that, times have changed. People have changed. New offices have opened up. We have gentrification. That has taken place or is taking place here in the city of Buffalo. We're going through what some would call or consider, a Renaissance period. So, with that, there's new players. There's new players, but also there's new opportunities. So, I found though, overall the experience that I've had, I've been back, in my hometown. I'm going to say, 3 years now. And within that time span, we've made a lot of success, a lot of inroads.
Well, now you've been back in Buffalo for 3 years, living in Buffalo, but you were actually working with Hope Buffalo prior to that when you were still living in New York City, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. So here comes the hometown boy coming in from from New York City, the big city.
Right, right.
And so did that raise any eyebrows for folks that?
Yeah, absolutely. When we first received the grant, for Hope Buffalo, I was traveling back and forth from New York City, quite regularly. We had a staff person at that point in time, one staff person here who was great, Maisha Drayton. She was doing a great job and is a phenomenal trainer in person, just overall. And one of the things that I went back to Barbara Ciccatelli, our CEO and president and founder, and said, there's a lot of great things that's happening in the city of Buffalo. I think we might want to consider opening up an office. So she said, really, Stan? We chuckled, got a big laugh out of it. And, said, I said to her that there was this community meeting, this forum that was taking place where a lot of healthcare providers, were stakeholders were going to be meeting, to talk about, applying for this grant, for this funding, to benefit, to serve those communities with the greatest need. And she gave me her blessings. I went to the meeting, and it was everything was going great, Tom. Everything. I mean, it couldn't have went any better. I couldn't have planned this, because at the end of the meeting, they wanted to select a chairperson, to help lead the initiative and, get things going and building the infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. And, I still have some relationships there that people knew me, knew my work, and, knew that I was a person of integrity. And some voted me to be the chair and help lead the charge. So I was all happy and excited about it. And I was ready to go back and report to Barbara Ciccatelli, that, we're off to a great start. And lo and behold, someone says, wait a moment, time out. Who is this guy? I haven't seen him. I don't know him. I'm not familiar with him. What is his body of work? Who is he? And that said to me that we as an organization, we had a lot of work to do in terms of relationship building, as well as me myself, in terms of coming back home as well. So I saw it as an opportunity to do some great work, and eventually things worked out. So that's my
That's
story.
really a great story, Stan. It really is. And actually, I knew about that story, so I wanted to make sure you got that in, because it's a really good one. It's a really good one.
Well, you know what it said, Tom. If I could speak to just real briefly,
Sure.
What it really said was that oftentimes the organizations, they come into a community, or they are part of a community already, and yet and still they haven't, or we haven't done the important groundwork. We haven't built that trust. We haven't built that rapport, with those who are mostly affected by the work that we're trying to do. And that's a huge mistake, and that's a huge assumption, that we oftentimes make. So, and I was very glad that that happened, because I was able to share with, our CEO, Barbara Ciccatelli, and I was very even more excited to hear that her concern was that we weren't going to be seen as another outside organization or community-based organization, not for profit, that was going to come in and take resources, from other community-based organizations, or not have established a relationship, a bi-directional, with those mostly affected by the work in a real meaningful manner. So that really was a light bulb moment and eye opening. And, I was glad that Barbara, that was on her, like her vision, one of her concerns, and we were able to address that and then move forward to create a sustainable movement.
Right. Well, we probably should give a shout out to Barbara here, because people maybe know that you work for CAI Global, which used to go by the full name of Ciccatelli and Associates. And so the Ciccatelli there is actually Barbara Ciccatelli, who is the founder of CAI Global, correct?
Absolutely correct.
Right. So, and we appreciate. It's my pleasure to also know Barbara, as you know, and I can just see her in that conversation with you, and not only imagine how her mind works about how is this going to work in Buffalo, but also in terms of then when it's a go, her support for you in that effort. So
absolutely.
Well, hey, one of the things you taught me about the community of Buffalo when I was working with you up there is how segmented and divided the community is by race and ethnicity. And if I remember right, you even said to me that you could pull out a map and show me some very distinct geographical boundaries separating the three sub-communities of Black, African American community, the Latino Hispanic community, and the white Caucasian community. However, you also knew that each of these communities needed to be engaged and have meaningful roles in the work of Hope Buffalo. And so I'm wondering, can you speak a little bit into the question of what have you been doing over the past few years to build relationships and engage people in all three of these sub communities?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Tom. When you look at some of the data from from the census tracts, Buffalo's in the top five in terms of one of the most segregated cities, by population, here in the country, and also unfortunately one of the poorest as well. So we have high child poverty rates, here in the city of Buffalo, and yet and still we have tremendous access, as well. And one of those assets is we call ourselves the city of good neighbors. So that's what, other than chicken wings, we also, and the Buffalo Bills, we know for, the city known as being the city of good neighbors. So it was very important when we're creating this movement that it was very important that it was diverse, that we've already, well, that we also address equity, not in terms of equality, but addressing equity in terms of access to services, and also be inclusive. Not just inclusive in terms of race and ethnicity, but also sexual preference, orientation, etc. So those key elements, were essential in creating a safe environment where people could come and and share their thoughts, their experiences in a very transparent, open way without feeling threatened. But also being respected. As well. It doesn't mean that we always agreed. But yet and still we had to have those open and honest conversations in order to move forward. So without that, some people might call it, confrontation or uncomfortable moments. We had to really be uncomfortable for a little while in order to get comfortable doing this work, in these spaces and with alongside, those with the lived experience, who really voices that we needed to amplify and to listen to and to, work in concert with.
Stan, as you were talking about that, something actually it goes way back to your comment about chicken wings, the Buffalo Bills, and the city of good neighbors, right? It occurred to me that we cannot really emphasize enough the importance of engaging, knowing the community that you are attempting to engage. And so, one of the great advantages that you bring is that as a native son, you come in and you're aware of some of these nuances, even though you'd been away for a while. You could pick up on those and really understand those things a lot quicker than somebody like myself could, coming completely from the outside. And so, I guess what it just says to me is the value in when we're doing relationship building and community engagement. There is certainly this sense of knowing one another and getting to know one another, but there is also that sense of how important it is to really understand the culture of the community in which you are working. You,
Absolutely.
you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. Just building on, saying we're having this open conversation, just building on the chicken wings, you know, hot, medium, or mild. Though nonetheless, though, some might prefer blue cheese, some might prefer ranch. All right, Buffalonians, typically prefer the blue cheese. However, we can all agree, though. What can we all agree on? All right, that they're good. So finding that sweet spot, finding what it is that we have in common, and then working from that perspective, as a common denominator, to achieve what it is that we're trying to, accomplish. That's our goal. you know
Stan, what is it about upstate New York that I make so many associations with the food? There's Binghamton, New York, and the Speedies, right? And then I think of Albany and pizza, and I don't know why exactly. But then I think now Buffalo, you know, chicken wings, but there's also a hot dog up there. There's a hot dog place. Is it
Well, we have Ted's. We have Ted's.
Ted's?
Yes,
Ted's.
yes, yes. See, you know the community already. Yes.
Oh no, I know food. I mean, the problem is I've known food all my life. Oh, that is really good. So you're this native son that has come home. You know the community. You've been really working to build relationships and engage various sub communities within the larger community and bring them together on the work of Hope Buffalo. And of course, then we hit a pandemic, right? And now all of those tools that a community organizer and engager has at their disposal, the face-to-face meetings, the coffee chats, the walking across the street and just, talking with somebody, those things kind of go away. And so what I'm wondering is, what were you able to continue to do during through the pandemic, even right up until now, because we're still dealing with pandemic issues in November of 2021. But what were the workarounds that you had to have? So if you couldn't engage people personally, what did you do differently?
Yeah, yeah. Certainly, the pandemic presented some, challenges, for all of us. And, I want to, send offer my deepest, sentiments to those who, have, been affected by, COVID, or, sick or severely ill, and unfortunately, who may have lost someone, as a result of COVID, because it's real. And one of the things that we did, to try and address some of those challenges, as many organizations, I'm sure, or movements, we quickly pivoted to a virtual world, whereas many people were sheltering in place, schools were closed, parents weren't going to work anymore, or very few. Many of them was working from home. So we were able, to pivot and implement our programs, our evidence-based interventions, on a virtual platform. As I mentioned earlier, that Buffalo is dealing with high a high poverty issue here in our community. Even though there's a renaissance that's occurring, and that created, believe it or not, that's still we're dealing with a digital divide here. Where some people don't have access to the internet, or their internet broadband or what have you, isn't as strong as as others. Let me just put it that way. Another equity issue. So one of the things that we've done, Tom, and not just with Hope Buffalo, but with some of our other initiatives that are happening here in the area, we went door to door, with door hangers, with information surrounding whether it's COVID or tobacco use and other health initiatives that we're working on. We left information really at the door, on people homes and apartment buildings, about COVID-19, what they can do to keep themselves safe, and also about many of our health initiatives as well. And one of the things that we tried to do was not just look at what was most popular, but also what's most convenient and accessible to our community. And believe it or not, penny savers, newspapers, print magazines, flyers, so to speak, in addition to the door hanger. So we tried to get creative and innovative, in our work, in our efforts to increase awareness and education, and reach our priority populations as well.
That's quite brilliant, actually. I mean, what it says to us is that we've certainly done a lot of different and new things with digital technology, especially since the advent of the internet, and with some of the big players in this since about 2005, 2006. But the reality is that sometimes we have to go back to the old ways to
Mm-hmm.
even make the new ways work.
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I think that we might rely too much on best practices, quote unquote, and look at what's innovative, what's promising, and also, what has worked, and one of the things I like to say and, remind folks, about that is not looking at necessarily what's wrong, but what's strong, about our community, and identifying those tools and resources, that can help, not only, get message to people, but also amplify, our priority population voices as well. Meeting them where they're at. So
What's strong? Excellent. Really like that. Thank you, Stan. Um, so Hope Buffalo was birthed in about 2015, if I remember correctly. And you're hoping that Hope Buffalo just keeps right on going for quite a while yet. And certainly, it seems like it's making some great efforts, movement in that direction. So, can you talk with me a little bit about how has relationship building and engagement contributed to ensuring the continuation or the sustain what we might think of as the sustainability of Hope Buffalo?
right, excellent question. I think you know when we're talking about sustainability, oftentimes, we don't think about it until the last year, of the grant. you know, but it's kind of like evaluation. It should be thought of at the first in the beginning, addressed in the middle as well as at the end. And one of the things when you look at, our role, CAI, Chickatell Associates, as a, backbone organization, it's very important to work with those partners so that, you're building their self-efficacy. You're building or creating pathways and systems. It doesn't always have to necessarily be resources. That's nice, but you're creating systems and resources that will last beyond the lifespan of a funding period or of a grant. So what we've been doing is really building relationships with many of our community-based organizations, to identify, their sustainability plan, across within their organization, to create, policies and systemic change, and also to position themselves, to go after, funding as well. They have access to the science, they have access to the data, they have access to the information, whereas though they can collaboratively, as a 501c3, or, as an organization, they can, work together, to apply for funding, that will continue to work or strengthen the work, moving forward. So I'm very, very excited that, we've started, that process with several organizations, that, we ourselves have been very fortunate to be or to receive continued funding, from the Office of Population Affairs for Hope Buffalo, to continue to work towards optimizing teen health. And, well, just once again, I think it's very important, that we not necessarily empower, but we build the self-efficacy of the community, in a way that, they're able to sustain it and own the movement, themselves, and to define it, as the community continues to change and move forward also.
Stan, I am aware of the fact that I am not the only person in the world that has knows how effective you've been in building relationships and engaging in your community. You recently, and in fact, I got to see this, it was pretty cool. You recently were recognized as one of 4 people to receive the Pay It Forward Award from the Community Foundation of Greater Buffalo. But Stan, I'm wondering if you can tell us more about what the Pay It Forward Award is about, and what does it feel like to have so many eyes on you that are appreciating your work?
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I'm very humbled, by the award, and, thank you and your family, for attending, as well. And, the award itself is really, in my opinion, it's in recognition of the community. It represents, those who have come before me, who have worked in this space, in this community, and also those who I have the pleasure of standing beside and working shoulder to shoulder with, to really, address health equity, to increase the quality of life, of folks and residents, especially youth in particular, for generations to come. The award symbolizes or recognizes individuals, organizations who have worked with youth, primarily youth of color, and exemplify leadership qualities that they consider to be outstanding, and also um, um, what was the word they used? But I'm gonna say just further the advancement of others, and so I'm very appreciative of that honor, and yet and still I'm very humble, because it's really is a reflection of the hard work of other individuals, CAI, and the community, who really is deserving of it. What it feels like to have um, eyes, or to be recognized, it feels great. It feels wonderful, because of it really provides an opportunity to transport what is happening here in Buffalo in other places, to replicate it, in other areas that have similar needs, that have similar challenges. And I think that is a great opportunity. I'm very proud to help carry that torch, because it can't just stay in one place. If we are to truly be successful, it has to happen, on a much larger scale. So I think that that is a tremendous honor, and I'm very proud, for the community, for their hard work, and to be recognized in that light. So thank you.
Well, Stan, we were really honored to be invited to sit in on that award ceremony, and we felt so proud of you, and so proud for you as well, because we know how hard you work. We know who you are as a person, and it is just always so exciting to see people that we appreciate and care about so much being honored in that way. So it was great. Thank you for that invite. And
Right. And if I might add, Tom, is that the reason that I'm glad you were able to attend, in terms of not just attend, but also to see the fruits of your labor. Certainly you and I have worked together for a number of years, and got to know one another, and you know the work what you've seen, or what's happening here in Buffalo. We count you and hopefully that you count us amongst your successes, because you know you put a lot of time and effort into Hope Buffalo, into this community, and to be recognized as such. We want to honor you and what you're doing with Tenacious Change, as well, as an example of what could be, to imagine, the way and the path forward. So, thank you.
well, thank you, Stan. I'm very honored by that, and very appreciative of it as well. Um, and actually, you've shared that with me many times over the years, and it's always a little embarrassing for me to hear, because I know y'all are doing the work. And you're doing it so very, very well. But thank you so much. And I not only beyond counting you as a group that I feel like I've had some success with, I really count you all as friends and colleagues, and really appreciate everything you're doing for the young people of Buffalo. It's really great. I follow you, and I try to keep tabs on you. But y'all are doing really good work up there. So, but thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I still reflecting a little bit on Hope Buffalo, and looking ahead. What more would you like to do in terms of relationship building and engagements to deepen this sense of ownership the community has in Hope Buffalo, Stan?
One of the things I would like to do is to continue to ask the community, how can we go deeper and even further upstream, to really engage them even more so, in a meaningful and in a authentic and transparent way, so that we can make sure that we're doing the work of the people, uh, and then to be able to, once again, as I said earlier, to have this work serve as a model, for other communities, to adapt and to implement, in their area. I think I would like to, see it, globally, as well, because when I say see it, I mean authentic community engagement. We oftentimes, talk about what does that mean, what does that look like, and that is really creating a movement or movements that the people own, that the people can really roll up their sleeves, sink their teeth in, get their hands, in the dirt, so to speak, and say and see, I'm a part of this, I know this is my legacy,
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I would love to see. I think it's starting to happen. Starting to happen. I think COVID has shined a light on this, as well as, unfortunately, in terms of health disparities, and unfortunately, the death of George Floyd, as well, in terms of the inequities that exist in our society. So we can no longer continue to put our heads in the in the sand, and think that they don't exist. The curtain has pulled back. Now, what are we going to do about it? Now, how are we going to really engage? Those who are mostly affected by it, in it as a part of the solution and not seen as a part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Um, I'm going to change the frame of reference for you just a little bit here. I want you to imagine that uh, I called you up someday, or I should say, zoomed you up someday, and I said, "Hey, Stan, I'm just really starting out here in building a community wide change effort, and I need some advice from you. What three things could you tell me are the most important things for me to do to build relationships and engage the whole community?"
Uh, one of the things I would say, the three things I would say, one first, is to avoid tokenism. When you look at participation and engagement, for example, when elected officials want to get their point across or show that that they have the best interests of our children, they oftentimes might invite children or youth to appear with them in a photo op, but they don't even know their names.
Mm.
They don't even know their story. They don't even know where they may not or may know where they live. So in terms of engaging partners, in terms of engaging those with lived experience, we want to avoid tokenism. We want to get to know them. We want to build that rapport with them. We want to build trust. uh, the second thing I would say is respect. And as Aretha Franklin would say, RESPECT.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what I mean. You all know the song, but what does that mean? What does that look like? Treating people with dignity and respect. Regardless of what type of car they drive, regardless of what type of home they might have, or what's in their wallet, or the shoes or the clothes on their back. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, and respect. That is, in my opinion, for well, very important. And last but not least, I would say that, really, if you're going to do this work, provide not just a space at the table, for the conversation. Really listen and engage, everyone at the table in the conversation in a real, authentic way. Make sure that people, oftentimes, I like to give examples sometimes, when they're invited to the table, invited to the meeting, all right, they're just invited, or they're maybe provided opportunities to ask questions or give input. Do they have decision making power? Do they have real power and real influence? In terms of how things are going to be done, how things are going to be implemented. In terms of community engagement. So I know that said a lot, right there, but those to me, I think those are some of the key factors that I found to be important, in terms of engaging the community in a real, authentic, and meaningful way.
I really appreciate that in how you answered that question, Stan. You define for us in some very clear and real ways what authentic engagement looks like, and it's about not tokenizing. It's about listening. It's about not a place at the table all by itself, but there's real participation and the power to make decisions. So that's really great. Thank you so much. And if I were that person that just came to you, I would feel like I was walking away with, aha, okay, maybe I got to figure out how to do that, but now I know the direction I'm going, right?
Yeah, and when you think about it, Tom, something that we've talked about, it's a mindset. It's attitudinal.
Yeah.
As well. Because it says really from the start that you matter. That I see you. And that is so that is so important when we talk about building that rapport and building relationships and building trust.
Yeah.
Uh, in this space.
Yeah, it matters. That really does. Well, so Stan, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say, is there anything else I should be asking you about, or that we should be talking about?
Yeah. No, we've covered a lot of ground. I would say that just in terms of where we are in the space, that when we're talking about equity, when we're talking about health equity, whether it's teen pregnancy prevention or other initiatives, that we oftentimes look at just the individual behavior change, that need or that that has to occur or takes place. We have to also look at what happens within organizations, within systems, and how they're intertwined, with one another, and very complex. And last but not least, I would like to say that we have to change the landscape, the environment, itself, because if the environment doesn't support the behavior change, all right, then it makes it more challenging and difficult, to occur, or for it to happen. Not that it won't, all right. It just makes it, that much harder, difficult, to go to scale or to take place. So, that's very important. When we're talking about doing this work, when we talk about engagement, authentic community engagement, and when we do it correctly, it's also very liberating, for all.
Oh, that is a great last word, Stan. Well, Stan, thank you so much. As always, my friend, it is a pleasure to spend any time I can with you, whether it's in person or whether it has, as we have had to do the last 18 months by Zoom. I always look forward to it. I always feel like I come away with my cup refilled. I should say my cup, my mug refilled. How about that? I know you got one there too. Yeah, look at that. Absolutely. Well, Stan, thank you so very much. And I look forward to the time when we can sit down face to face again and have that cup of coffee, that cup of tea, and just catch up.
Sounds great. I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you.